everybody. Welcome back to the Briarheart02 YouTube channel. Today, we are discussing the 10th Doctor era, and today I have with me Joey, Jacob,
God damn it, Joey.
and none other than the ultimate 10th Doctor weeb himself, Genesis of Androzani, also known as Connor.
Yes, well. That'd be me.
So,
Whose hair kind of looks like Tennant's.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I hate myself already. Alright, so it's been a while, and I want to make note of the fact that Dylan isn't here.
Yes,
There's a
because he's
reason
had
for
so
that.
many conversations with me about this doctor that he wants to kill himself.
That was basically it, because Brian was like, hey, yo, you want to be on this retrospective? And he's like, nah, I can't talk about the 10th Doctor for another second.
I just figure that Dylan, Jacob, and Joey are the three regulars to this retrospective series. On the last one, we didn't have Joey for some reason. Can't remember why.
I forget what was going on then.
I think you were just busy with like a show or something.
So I was like, hey, Dylan, when do you want to do this one? And he was like, I'm not doing another one. You can't make me. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, okay. You started
Today we talking about the spiky boy himself.
We
Mm-hmm.
should talk
Dylan
about
passed this up because he wants to talk about Matt Smith. That's the point he's gotten to.
Alright, let's jump right in. Let's talk about our thoughts on the spiky boy himself. You can
Yes.
start
Me.
Connor, because I haven't actually heard Connor talk about it before.
Yes, you have.
Do you realize what you just done,
I mean,
Brian?
I haven't heard him talk about it in depth while I'm around, so I want to hear him go.
Okay. There's probably a reason for that. Isn't there? Because I always get cut off. But yeah, I might as well be loud and proud here. David Tennant is my favorite Doctor. I said that. David Tennant is my favorite Doctor.
I am trying to contain myself, Connor.
He's putting so many pauses in between every single fucking word he said.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit, nostalgia is one hell of a drug. But I think that over the years, this has not faded away. Because in my older age, I've become a lot more, critical of this show. And there's certain elements that have completely landslided downhill, such as the Matt Smith era itself. That, for me, has gone massively downhill since I was a child. This, however, has not. And I think it's probably because I just really, really like the way Russell T Davies writes characters. And for me, the arc of all these characters from start of Christopher Eccleston, Series 1, all the way to the end, for me, is a wonderful journey. It's very complex. It's very emotional. There's lots of turns. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before, seen since, really, I think, because it really puts that whole domestic view on the show. Obviously, in the 9th Doctor retrospective, you may have brought up the fact that at this point in the show, they're now starting to show the consequences of companions traveling with the Doctor now that these families are, being impacted by these events. That is just one example, I find, of this style of writing characters that I love. And I feel like it's not just prevalent there, but it's all throughout the Davies era. This kind of writing is in it. And it's just really, for me, the perfect blend of this just wonderfully creative sci-fi show mixed in with this really grounded drama. And it's not perfect, I will admit. I myself even have a couple of issues here and there. But overall, this, to me, is exactly the kind of thing that I look for in a TV show, where it mixes two so completely contrasting elements, one being such an imaginative, creative sci-fi show with such an interesting character at the forefront, and having it meet that Russell T Davies kitchen sink drama quality that he has to his writing, and sort of fantasizing it and amplifying it to, you know, the nth degree, to these big high stakes at points. And for me, that style, mixed in with the fact that there is this long-term character evolution across the entire tenure, combined with the fact that it very much comes off what is set up with Christopher Eggleston, for me, makes for a great story. And in terms of, rather than, you know, I haven't gone into details yet, but overall, that is why I love this Doctor so much.
I think from
that overall statement.
I'm gonna disagree with one point you said there, because I almost agree on your larger scale, and you know, Davies is a nice mix of grand sci-fi and complex characters, but I don't think the 10th Doctor is all that complex, and I don't find the 10th Doctor as a character to be terribly interesting. I'm interested in David Tennant as an actor. I'm interested in watching him. He's extremely enjoyable to watch, but I don't see much of a journey or a character arc in the 10th Doctor. I can see journeys in the characters around him, but not in the 10th Doctor himself. I think there's this stock Doctor performance that David Tennant absolutely kills in the same way that Tom Baker kills. They absolutely nail their performances, but I don't think there's anything particularly interesting that drags me towards their version of the Doctor. Every now and then Tom gets a bit angry. Every now and then Tennant gets a bit moody. And that's about it. I don't see that much of an interesting character arc in there.
Jacob?
Personally.
So, Tennant is my least favorite Doctor. Like, I think I'm the only one on this panel who has that opinion. I don't know. I know Joey, you hate Smith more than Tennant.
Yeah.
And Brian, I'm not sure where you stand.
I know at a point he was your.
This is a long.
I knew at a point he was your least favorite, Brian, but I don't know if he still is.
But I
We'll
will.
get to that in a minute.
I will.
I want to hear what
that,
Jacob has
like
to say
Joey
first.
has said, Tennant is an actor who is extremely watchable. Before we recorded, I joked I watched Good Omens in preparation for this. But that's partially because Tennant is watchable in everything he does. My grievances with Tennant are not grievances with Tennant. As an actor, I adore him as an actor. He's always fun to watch. My problem is that the 10th Doctor is like Russell T Davies took Peter Davison's Doctor, added some spiky hair and some emo, and basically took JNT's rule about no hanky-panky in the TARDIS, ripped it up to shreds, and took out any semblance of like the arc that makes Davison, particularly in his last season, work.
Jacob, can you just do me a favor and say hanky-panky again?
I was quoting Janet Fielding.
Janet Fielding.
Hanky panky. I have this thing about not wanting hanky panky in the TARDIS.
Oh, hanky panky
Well, yeah,
hidden
yeah.
by the body.
Well, because it's clear that the Doctor and Rose probably had sex. Like,
No. Well,
I don't think so personally.
No, most definitely.
Obviously, you know, you could make that conclusion.
Bullshit.
You could make that conclusion, but I don't think so.
the
And I've
the
re-
In
entire
my eyes,
I
I
have
thought it was
reason
pretty
to
clear
believe
that
it.
the Doctor and Rose had sex in the TARDIS. It had to have taken place between Impossible Planets and the Satan Pit. Yes, not in the middle of the story. At some point, they had it in there.
Holy fucking shit, Joey! I love you.
well, and it's clear that in season 3 they took is probably when Tennant's at his most insufferable.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, he's fucking up. I mean, I don't hate his acting in that, but he's written very, very preppy. It's I should say peppy, not preppy. It's just too much. There's far. It's weird to say this, but for once, it's a Doctor with far too much energy in it.
He is very intense. He's a very intense actor. I will say
not
that.
just in the way he's acting.
He's not written he's not written like an alien, which is kind of the problem with a lot of the new Who Doctors. Post Tennant as well.
Yeah.
Not so much necessarily like this is the human Doctor, which.
You know what's weird? I think Tennant and Smith are the only very human Doctors. I think Eccleston, Capaldi, and Whittaker all feel very distanced.
Yeah, and I just find him bland. Like, there isn't the arc. Like, there isn't much I can say about Tennant except the popular one. Like,
I could say basically the same thing about Tom, but at the end of the day, they're both phenomenal actors, and
Yeah.
I can still get sucked into their stories very easily. I think Tom overall has far better stories. But that's neither here nor there.
Interestingly, though, they are very different in the sense that Tom is very alien.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I wouldn't say
Which is
Tom's
weird.
the
Which is
most
weird.
alien.
They are the two most popular Doctors, and they're popular for very, very different reasons.
Different reasons.
Mhm.
So,
Other than they're both kind of comedic.
so my thoughts on the 10th Doctor as a character. See, I don't know if I was talking about this publicly, but a few months ago I did a complete rewatch of all of David Tennant's stuff.
Yes,
In
I remember
order.
this. I think we talked about this on one of the commentaries.
And I was finding that a lot of my issues with Tennant weren't as prevalent when I went back and rewatched this. So he's gone up my list considerably. He's sort of like middle now. He's not at the bottom. I think that might just be a result of me liking moodier Doctors.
I think for me, what I think I may have had a similar experience to you, Brian, because
I also should say I don't hate Tennant.
it's something that happens a lot in retrospect for me. Is that things I was pissed off about before, when I go back and rewatch episodes a couple of times, I'm like, you know what? That's not nearly as bad as I remember. Just because I'm able to, rather than be pissed off at a bad episode, I can just kind of laugh at it. Or in this case, a weaker Doctor, in my opinion, I could just kind of be like, oh, well, you know what? I could just admire the performance and not care too much about the writing. But the writing is still an issue for me.
Well, two very standout Tennant moments for me, and sort of iconic scenes in my head of his Doctor, come from his more moodier stuff and less of his, bubbly, go have fun side. I enjoy it when Tennant goes dark, because while the writing may not be entirely there, Tennant as an actor fucking sells it. In my opinion, it's believable for me.
It comes off as a bit too. I want to avoid saying try hard, but yeah, it's a bit try hard. It's a little too edgy. It doesn't quite hit the nail on the head as far as capturing a moodier Doctor.
The two things I'm thinking about specifically when I say this are the back half of Waters of Mars and
fucking that's the weaker half of Waters of Mars, my man.
Nah, you're wrong. You're wrong.
No.
And Joey, I think you and I can agree on this. That even though it's a really shit episode, that scene towards the end of the Lazarus experiment, where
that's not a dark moment. That's some fucking pretentious monologuing.
I really like that moment, though.
No.
I'd argue, if you want to talk dark,
fuck off, you Lazarus experiment apologist.
Oh no, the rest
good,
of the
man.
episode's an utter fucking mess.
Oh, well.
But I really like that.
if you want dark, brilliant
Gatiss
Tennant, look
and-
no further than the end of the Family of Blood.
Oh yeah.
That's how you do it properly, I think.
Yeah,
It
and
would
the
work better
Family
with
of
7, but
And the
We'll
Family
get
of
to that.
Blood's really fucking good too. Now that I think about it. Yeah, that's up
I
there.
think just to cut in slightly, I think one of my favorite things about that scene in the Family of Blood is that he doesn't actually say anything.
Yeah, it's all told from another person's perspective and how they view the Doctor, rather than rather than what people perceive as a lot of his darker moments, where he's just ranting about how dark and edgy I am right now. It's just it doesn't come through when you're just screaming it into the void. When someone is taking it as how they view the Doctor, that's when the Doctor is at his scariest.
What I like about that scene from the Lazarus experiment is he keeps his cool throughout it. He doesn't go particularly very angry. He doesn't raise his voice or anything. He's just sort of like, yeah, I've been here. I've seen other people like you want this. It's not what you think.
Dude, what is with your boner for Lazarus experiment?
I don't have a boner for Lazarus. It's a boner for a specific snippet of dialogue in Lazarus Experiment.
It's like the last 10 minutes of the episode, Brian.
I don't know. I really like that last 10 minutes.
Fucking hell.
Fucking shoot me. But yeah, no, I've got a bit more appreciation for Tennant, unfortunately, which it's kind of
Unfortunately, that's not.
It's
very
kind of
positive.
something I'm ashamed to say.
Well, here's the thing, Brian.
Mm.
Tennant's my least favorite Doctor. I don't think he's a bad Doctor. I will stand by the fact there's never been a bad Doctor.
Oh, well,
Then how is Smith Is Smith not worse, my man?
I don't mind Smith as much.
My man, just rewatch the Smith era in its entirety, in order. You're gonna want to kill yourself by the time of the Doctor.
there's a reason.
I can confirm this.
See,
I'm not.
Just time of the Doctor on its own is gonna make you want to kill yourself.
I do think Smith has some very good moments though, but overall, it's for me not. It's more.
We're not talking about
positive.
Smith. We're talking about Tennant.
Oh well, I was trying to.
I
fit
also
in for
like
a second,
Series
Brian.
5 much more than Joey does.
And you're wrong about that. And Brian, if you're gonna complain about us getting off topic, why haven't you rung us back in and moved us on to the next topic?
That's what I'm about to do, you
Then
cockface.
do it!
Oh, so when Joey does that, it's fine. But when I do it, I get
because I'm a good because I'm a
cockface.
Jacob because I'm a good host, and I was just like, could we just move on to the next thing? No, like Brian, just fucking get us on with it.
Joey and I have equal big dick energy. You're like, can we move on to the next thing? And I have to put you in your fucking place.
Brian, just saying that if you have any questions for me about this topic, then I'm more than happy to answer them because obviously there's a lot of unresolved disagreements here that'll probably be unresolved forever. But if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Well, like, I don't know. Give me your take on my thoughts and what I like about Tennant. Do you feel the same way about that, except like just times 10? Or
I suppose. I don't want to straw man it, but yeah, I suppose that's a good way to put it. But
All right.
it's not, for me. It's not just the dark moments that I like; it's the whole package.
Okay. See, I'm just a sucker for moody Doctor.
And I will say, I can understand people being irritated by his bubbly aside because there's very similar moments with Matt Smith and Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and even sometimes Capaldi's Doctor, especially in Series 9, where they exert a very similar kind of comedic energy. But I feel like one of the reasons why I don't so much enjoy it in those instances is because it feels like they are trying to do a sort of impression of him. Whereas because Tennant very much is an originator of his own style, he puts a lot of his own personality into the role. I feel, for me personally, a lot of his comedic moments for
I'm
me...
gonna hard disagree with that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna hard disagree with that.
A lot of his comedic moments for me feel a lot more genuine because it's his personality. Whereas when you get like Jodie Whittaker trying to do the exact same kind of humor, it just doesn't land for me because it doesn't feel genuine. It feels forced.
But Tennant's style isn't his own. He's trying to be Tom Baker in a way. He's just trying to modernize Tom Baker's
there are certainly
style.
some parts where he is. Like, there are some...
And then after that, I think everyone thinks Tennant had his own style, and then you get the Tennant copies in Smith and Whittaker. But Tennant in itself is trying to modernize the Tom Baker performance. And I don't hate that, because he is trying to change it in a way that, like, it can be more accessible. But I think he is very much influenced by Baker.
And another issue.
He is definitely influenced by Baker, but I do think there is quite a bit of his own style in there as well that is separate from Baker, I think.
Another issue with those other actors doing it is those other actors may not actually be suited for that type of comedy. Yeah. Jodie Whittaker certainly isn't.
Yeah,
she's better when
I think
she's given...
one example for me is there's a scene at the very beginning of The Stolen Earth where Tennant asks the milkman what day it is, and he says, oh, it's Saturday. He's like, oh, Saturday's good. And that scene to me makes a lot more sense than something like Jodie Whittaker being like, I call people dude now. You know, I love a conspiracy. It just doesn't feel right in the scene. It feels so jarring. Whereas with Tennant, it feels very reactionary, you know? It's a bit more in the moment. Whereas I feel like with other Doctors, it's very much, this is the part where we do a quirky scene. This is the part.
I still found it kind of cringe with Tennant.
There is one Tennant scene though where he is doing his thing where I'm not so much a fan of it, and it's the one that you all hate as well. The one at the very beginning of The End of Time. I don't like that scene. That's weird.
Oh, with the ood, yeah.
Oh yeah, that
was just weird. I mean, I like
I'm sure we'll get into it.
I like the tie-in
later,
to,
but like that's just. Sorry, go on.
In terms of like storyline wise, I like the tie-in to Shakespeare Code and Day of the Doctor, but in terms of the actual moment it's in, it's very weird. Especially
it also breaks the tension that
Waters
the
of Mars
Waters of Mars
very
built up.
odd
Like
moment.
Waters of Mars built up this tension ending, kind of a cliffhanger, not entirely, but then End of Time
Like
just
at the end of Waters of Mars,
it.
he's literally like at the most one of the most tense moments of his life. And then in the very next episode, he comes at the TARDIS, he says, "I locked it like a car," and it just feels so out of place. So weird.
Because he's playing Drunk Crowley from Good Omens.
Well, I mean, it's just like that. It's just like that shitty scene from Girl in the Fireplace that I seem to be the only one who fucking hates. It's just like I feel the exact same way about that. But I'm sure
for me, that scene doesn't feel as out of place because it feels like it happens, like it actually happened in the story. Like him getting drunk was a result of him dancing with Madame de Pompadour, whereas with The End of Time, it's just completely out of nowhere.
Okay.
And I think the big difference between me and someone like you is that I don't necessarily dislike this kind of comedy. It's just I like it when it's genuine, and I dislike it when it's not. That's the difference.
Gotcha. Brian,
All
can
right,
we move the fuck on?
we're going to move on to Rose now.
Oh.
And how she is with Tennant, because there's a difference between how she is with Tennant and Eccleston. I think I may have touched on that last video, but we're going to touch on it again.
Yeah.
So, you know how Rose... I'm going to let Joey go first on this one, actually. I'll shut up.
Ooh, okay.
Since you weren't here for Rose last time.
Yeah, Rose is a fucking awful person. Like, I mean, she's already kind of bad with Eccleston. You know, she already like abandons her entire family and boyfriend. You know, just because the Doctor's like, hey, yo, I got a cool TARDIS here, and it's like, okay, well, fine, whatever. I can kind of let that pass. But then, Eccleston regenerates into Tennant, and he becomes fucking David Tennant in this fucking like. I don't even know what to call him. He's hotter. That's it. That's literally it. And suddenly Rose is in love with the Doctor, and it creates the most annoying, god awful, just cringe-inducing, horrible to watch relationship that I cannot stand.
New Earth.
Like just off the top of my head, we got New Earth. I hate them in Tooth and Claw. I hate them in. I mean, I specifically hate Rose in School Reunion, but like not her.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about because I think we all agree that's
she's okay in Girl in the Fireplace. I like her in Girl in the Fireplace. They're fine in Rise of the Cyber Age of Steel because Tennant's basically Eccleston in that story. It Eats a Lantern. I don't even know what the fuck to say about that one. They're awful in that. Impossible Planet Satan Pit. It kind of exemplifies the more toxic elements of their relationship, but I could let that slide. Love and Monsters and Fear Her, you know, it's just standard annoying. And Army Goes Doomsday, I don't entirely hate. They are rather annoying with one another, but by the end, I feel like they do have a good exit with one another. And I don't.
Scene on the beach.
I just don't like the beach scene.
Part of it is they're separate from most of Army of Ghosts and Doomsday.
Yeah, so. Rose is a character, though. I don't know, like... I mean, I know what changes. It's the fact that she's with a hot doctor now. What changes there is that she suddenly fawns over him and ignores literally everyone else around her. She will push anything to the side.
There's examples I've given before where she doesn't, and you seem to ignore them.
I forget what they are, actually. Like what?
Okay, in Tooth and Claw... she's actually spends quite a bit of time with one of the maids at the house.
Because she's forcibly separated from the Doctor?
Yeah, but that doesn't line up with what you've just said. It's not that. I mean, obviously, when he's around, she's going to have an impact on him because obviously she's a companion to the Doctor, like any other would. But there are scenes, plenty of them. I mean, probably more so in series 1, to be fair. But there are plenty of scenes. There are plenty of scenes where she is not horrible to other people. It is there.
But my point there was that the moment that Tennant is there, whenever she's around Tennant, she will push anything to the side to be with the Doctor. When she's separated from him, I don't entirely hate her because, like in the Fireplace, she's away from him for almost the entire episode, and she's great in that one. Same goes for the Cyberman two-parter. Like she's okay in that. It's just that relationship. I can't stand them together.
Right. Yeah, because obviously she's very attached. That is true.
So yeah, that's just how I feel about her. I cannot stand her personality throughout this one. Just not an enjoyable person to watch or be with whatsoever.
I'm kind of with Joey on that, in the sense that all of my issues with her from series 1 sort of just explode into everything.
And it's not like you can't have a bad person who's a companion. I mean, that could be really, really interesting. And I don't think it's ever really been done before.
I think with Turlo, they were teasing it, but they never really went through with what they were thinking.
They did for his first couple stories, but then once the Black Guardian was gone,
Yeah, after that, it was just sort of like, oh, is he, isn't he? And like you get that bit in Warriors of the Deep where he's like, face of Tegan, he's drowned.
That feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Hey. Top 10 Doctor Who cliffhangers.
Face it, Tegan, he's drowned.
He's been in there for like 2 seconds.
Number 1.
Stop, don't move.
Well, the big problem with Rose is that her actions don't have consequences.
The only consequence they have is when Vicky decides to fucking
kind of.
out.
I don't know. It's hard to say because they do have consequences on her sometimes, but they're not really like they're more like personal consequences rather than like over. If you know what I mean, like it's more like the things that hurt her personally are what the consequences are for her, rather than it being like a general consequence. Like for example, if you were to line up like a general consequence, it would be something like fucking being obsessed over the Doctor leads to someone like falling into a pit because they've been hanging around him so long, and he's constantly moving through these dangerous environments, and like, oh, they slip and fall and break their neck or something. That would be a literal consequence of being obsessed with them, right? Whereas with Rose, it's a bit more like the consequences she feels are the ones that are affecting her personally, if that makes sense, rather than that, if that makes sense. Like, more like her being around the Doctor as part of what rips them apart at the end. It's more of a personal consequence rather than a literal one.
Except even them being ripped apart at the end isn't a lasting consequence. It really isn't. Because by the end of series 4, Davies...
Because honestly, like, if you cut out the beach scene, like, Doomsday is a very nice thematic ending for those characters. But then Davies just doesn't know how to let a character go. And somehow Rose is even worse than when she comes back, bar turn left.
And Rose is Davies' baby, and after 2 years of having his own companion and playing in the sandbox, he could not kill his baby.
Ridiculous.
Like, he had to give her a happy ending. It's why Donna is a ending. It's why Donna's works as a companion, because Donna's exit is genuinely... Rose's exit should be tragic, but series 4 undoes any of the tragedy.
Yeah. And this is what sorry to cut you off, but this goes back to what I was saying about literal consequence versus personal consequence, because the Doomsday ending only works if you're invested in the characters, whereas the Donna ending is an actual, like, even if you don't care about Donna or the 10th Doctor, you can recognize that this is a fucking massive consequence for this character. Like it's
See, I'm not
literally
I'm not terribly
life-changing.
connected. I'm not terribly connected to Rose at the end of Doomsday, but I still feel that's a good exit for her character.
Oh no, I'm
and
not
part
saying
of
it's not a
and
good
it's
exit.
John's
I'm
a
saying
character
that
who grows
I'm saying
and
that for you
changes,
to
whereas Rose
the
is
consequence
never treated
style
like
is
she has to
different
change.
in each scenario. So the Donna one has a much more literal effect, if that makes sense, because
Like,
someone having their memory wiped is different to being separated from someone but still having a memory, if that makes sense.
All right, so I'm going to move us along to the next topic because we have a lot to get through.
I was just going to add on one thing. There was something I was thinking about before we started. In terms of, because my issues with Rose are actually a little bit less extreme than yours. They're a bit more, and I say it. So basically, for me to put it this way, I don't find her as obnoxious as you lot do. I can see why can be quite an unpleasant person. She's quite a bratty person. But my issues with Rose in terms of the writing is that in Series 1, her writing is very much a sequence of events that evolve with the story. And when you get all the challenges and the things that change of the character in Series 1, it's all very different each time. It's very different scenarios that change her in different ways. Whereas I feel like the reason why Series 2 falls short is because rather than having a story that evolves as the story goes, it's quite repetitive. Because they tend to rely on the exact same thing every time. Like, for example, in Series 1, the only time we get a scenario where she's jealous of someone else being with the Doctor is the finale with Linda, right? Whereas with Series 2, they repeat that quite a bit with, you get that with Sir Jane, you get that with Madame de Pompadour, you get a couple of scenarios that are similar
Who
to
is
that.
rubbing a paperclip up against their mic?
That would be Jacob.
probably.
Jacob, stop it.
So I feel like with Series 2, one of the reasons for me why it falls a bit short is because they repeat a lot of the same beats throughout the series, and for me that's not as interesting as a story that evolves, and that's what I've got to say about it.
Okay, then.
I can see with that, because that's one of the big problems with Rose is that by the time you get, like, when you get to school reunion with Mickey, like, Boomtown is entirely ignored in their development. Like, it's
it's not quite as like intricate, because with I watched Boomtown like the other day. I binge watched Series 1 this week actually, and whether you like it or not, whether you like the way the story went or not, but I really feel like a lot of the writing between Rose and Mickey in Series 1, apart from possibly Rose, like Mickey's writing in Rose is a little bit caricatured, but overall a lot of it is very intricate and quite complex, whereas in Series 2 a lot of that gets taken away and it's a bit more surface level.
Well, because Rose is congratulated and Mickey still pines after her when the whole point of Boomtown is Mickey lets her go. Like, their relationship.
Yeah, I can see it's sort of like you've got Mickey bouncing back quite a bit because he's sort of lost on where to take himself from there. He's trying to get over it, but it's not working for him because he's still, attached in some ways. But
so we've actually moved into our next.
More. So I was just going to finish off and say it could have been done a lot more interestingly than it was, and they made it a little bit more surface level than it needed to be in episodes like School Reunion. I would agree with that.
So we've actually made it into our next topic, and I'm going to lump them together. Mickey and Jackie in Series 2, specifically.
Yep.
I like Mickey a lot in Series 2. He's quite good.
I like Jackie. I'm going to be honest. Jackie is the saving grace of Love and Monsters.
She's great.
Hey, Love and Monsters is a masterpiece, and it doesn't need Jackie, but it gets it anyway, and everyone fucking wins.
It's her best episode though, like her best character story.
Most definitely. Yeah. And as we all know, Jackie Tyler loses the will to have sex in that one.
Love and Monsters fails not because of like the Azorval as a crap design, just it's a crap character.
Hey! You're right, but fuck off.
I'm right.
Love and Monsters is a beautiful episode. Shut up, Jacob, you little book-reading twat.
Joey, why are you booing? You know I'm right.
I don't hate Love and Monsters. It's fine.
For me,
I will say Love and Monsters is not the worst of season 2.
Big
or
facts.
series 2.
We'll get
It's
into
not-
that later, Jacob.
So anyway, so Mickey, I actually quite like Mickey in this one. Not in Grown Fireplace. Well, he's good in Grown the Fireplace, but specifically, I like him in School Reunion. I like his comparisons to because obviously, the Tennant era is meant to match up to the Tom Baker era in that regard. Obviously Tennant is Tom, Sarah Jane is Rose, K9 is Mickey, and I don't know. I like that comparison being drawn and how useful Mickey actually is. They play it off as a joke, is that he is the tin dog, he's just the guy behind the scenes, but it actually does exemplify how useful he is to them, because every time I've seen him, he's only been there to service the plot, and he's been great.
Like he's the one who figured out, hey, this school is doing something weird. I should probably call the doctor in. Like,
yeah. And you look at Aliens of London World War III. He's the one that hacks into the Navy.
He's also he's treated way too shittily in Aliens of London and World War III. Like, Rose.
Mickey's great.
What do you? Wait, hang on. I don't want to. Obviously, it's not a series 1 thing, but briefly, like, what do you mean by that specifically?
Rose never has to really. Rose is unable to confront the emotional trauma that she put Mickey through. Like,
big fact.
Yeah, but are you missing? Because there is a bit of subtext in series 1 that Mickey is actually. Like, I feel like one of the things that gets glossed over quite a bit is that obviously Rose, has a lot of flaws in her character as well in terms of like her, being young and making a lot of mistakes. But I feel like a lot of people miss that Mickey is also not a particularly perfect human being either. There's a lot of quite bad, horrible things he does too. So I feel like that.
Yeah, I get that specifically in Boomtown though.
Yeah.
No, but it's there from the start. I mean, it's not exactly like focused on, but from Rose, from the first episode, it's very clear that he himself has a lot of issues.
I don't quite get it. It's straight off of Rose, but yeah, sure.
Sure. No. My point I was making with Aliens of London is that they kind of like there's the implication that Mickey was questioned in the disappearance of Rose, like put him through.
Well, I mean, it makes sense though, doesn't it, that he was questioned?
And he was the prime suspect.
Yeah.
Yes, it makes sense. Why it would make sense though, right? Wouldn't it?
It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's that Rose doesn't ever actually. She never really.
Think to ask him about it. So once again, the theme of this video is Rose is an awful person.
Yeah.
But I also quite I do quite like Mickey's exit or quote unquote exit in Age of Steel. And I
Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, I love his.
He's great in that 2-parter.
He's only ruined in Series 4 when they're at the end of Series 4 where they're like, oh, he hooks up with Martha.
No, he's fine in Series 4. You mean specifically in the End of Time?
In the End of Time,
because the most god awful decision is made
rushed.
about his character.
It should honestly. I wish, like, originally they were going to be in Torchwood, but then the schedules clashed, and it's really annoying because I wished it would have been great to have like an actual build up to that rather than it just be like, oh hey, they're married.
Yeah, and now they have a kid in Farewell Sarah Jane. It's just like, okay.
Tegan and Nissa are lesbians.
I mean, was Nissa ever not a lesbian?
I don't know.
Older Nissa arc?
No, never mind.
I don't know. Her and Davison had some bland chemistry. It was nice.
So
because J&T never allowed any hanky panky in the TARDIS.
Oh my god! So
I mean,
he's but yeah, I mean,
sorry, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey's quite good in Series 2. Army Goes Doomsday. I like his role in that. I like his journey he goes on. You could really see his character change, and he becomes an actual fighter. I enjoy. I
really like the detail that when he comes back in the finale, because he's been fighting off all these Cybermen and he's really trained himself as this like almost warrior of sorts. He comes back and for him, this is his moment where he's like, I'm going to prove myself to Rose the man that she wants me to be. And when he's facing up the sphere, he's like, this is the moment where I shoot up all the Cybermen and I win her over from the Doctor. And then the Daleks come out and the coward becomes like, it comes to the surface again. And it shows that whilst he has had some development, there's still a long way to go for him.
Yeah,
which does leave it a little bit like incomplete because we don't really see where that transitions to where he ends up in Series 4, but I like that detail.
Yeah. But I do quite like him in Stolen Earth Journey's End. He's fine in that. We basically just get the same Army of Ghosts Doomsday Mickey. But just more of it.
Yes, but this time I feel like a lot of the insecurities that were there in the Series 2 finale are gone now.
Also, he's paired up with Jackie throughout that Series 4 finale, which works.
Yeah,
and also with
I'm
Jack
gonna be
Harkness.
honest,
I mean,
Mickey
he's
and
great.
Jackie have better chemistry than Mickey and Rose.
Oh yeah, I mean Mickey with anyone who doesn't
Well,
treat
I mean,
him like shit
think-
is good Mickey.
I mean, I think that's kind of the point, though. I think they're not meant to have chemistry, if that makes sense. They're meant to feel like they shouldn't be together, Mickey and Rose.
Yeah,
like they're not meant to have chemistry. So
yeah, but I don't think like even just the actors like they just don't work well off each other like as well.
But I think honestly, I think that's the way it's directed, though. I think it's directed that way, that they're not meant to mesh well.
I feel like any argument we make against the 10th Doctor era in this is just going to be countered by Connor saying, yeah, but that's the point.
Well, I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you're in my position, how else am I supposed to justify it other than that's how I see it?
I mean,
art
I
is
will give him
subjective.
that. I get what he's saying from like a narrative standpoint. Like it's a good thing that Rose and Mickey clash. Rose is just a shit character.
Because if Rose and Mickey were meant to be a couple and they didn't have good chemistry, then I would accept that as a problem. But they're not.
Okay.
Still makes Rose a shitty person.
Yeah, Rose is still awful.
But I see his point.
Okay. And then Jackie. I mean, Jackie's Jackie. I mean, I fucking love Camille Kaduri. She's wonderful.
I fucking love Jackie so much.
Yeah.
She's my favorite character in New Who.
Shut up, Brian.
Here's the thing. Jackie's a bitch. And she knows she's a bitch. Russell knows she's a bitch. We all know she's a bitch. We can have fun with her because she's a bitch.
Yeah.
Love Jackie.
But I also think there's a genuine character under there. You know.
There is, but
Here I am, standing here with complete strangers, and I'm flashing you my knickers. My daughter won't be coming home tonight.
Oh my god, okay.
well, part of the thing is Jackie is not a good flirt. Like,
Yet somehow she still manages to pull guys.
Let's touch on Sarah Jane's reintroduction.
He likes to keep Satsumas in his dressing gown.
Wait, are you making Sarah Jane her own category, Brian?
I am going to make Sarah
Fucking
Jane.
hell,
her own
Brian!
okay,
Fuck you.
here's where
This
Jacob
thing
gets
is
to be a
already
bookweeb.
almost an hour.
Here's where Jacob gets to be a bookweeb for 5 minutes. He kind of stole the Toby Whithouse kind of stole the way Sarah Jane is introduced from the book Interference.
Jacob,
Really?
you're reading Interference right now.
Yes.
Fine, make your point. Go ahead.
Like
Well,
literally,
I
like
think, isn't it all women are made of glass, in a way?
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Wait, how did that tie?
Wait a minute. That is not interference.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
no, it's literally like the similar scene of Sarah Jane being introduced as a journalist, doing like in like bits of the dialogue are nearly the same. It's really interesting, mainly because it's a good way of introducing the character. And I'm gonna be honest, I love her in School Reunion.
Oh yeah, she's great in school. Yeah, she's wonderful.
I love the way she diverts the Doctor away from temptation when what's his face, the Krillitane Anthony Stewart Head's character tempts him with the technology to bring back Gallifrey, and you can see the Doctor is tempted by this, and the way that Sarah Jane essentially says, loss is part of us. I like that scene a lot. I like the way she.
Can I just point out that Russell T Davies is just fucking enough of a dork that he kept K9 and Company as canon.
Oh yeah.
Here's the thing.
I mean, Five Doctors acknowledges canon and Company as canon.
Yeah.
But you know what's weird though? Acknowledging that Sarah has K9 in the Five Doctors, but not acknowledging that Sarah Jane met the Fifth Doctor in the Five Doctors.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, weird. So fucking weird. And I'm not even talking about the half a dozen time regeneration. I'm talking about the bit where she's like, yeah, but you left me at the end of Hand of Fear, and I'm like, yeah, but you saw him again later on.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, makes no sense. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
timey-wimey.
Yikes.
I mean, but I mean, honestly, like, I think. Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say one of the story beats that Russell T crosses throughout his entire run is the way a companion can influence the Doctor, and that scene in School Reunion is one of the examples of when a companion influences a Doctor's decisions, especially with the 10th Doctor and how quite often he gets a little bit unhinged and he often can revert to, being very conflicted about his decision making. And School Reunion is an example of that. We also have that later on as well, especially in Series 4 and the specials. Companions being there or not being there has a very big impact on this Doctor's decision making, which Dylan in the 10th Doctor debate was very quick to criticize. So obviously there's some backlash to it, but it's one of the parts of this character that I really like the way the storytelling tackles it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's very selective, isn't it? Because it only draws from very specific eras of Doctor Who's past, that like only these particular things affected him. Isn't that a bit odd, cherry picked, coincidental? I don't know.
What do you mean? What do you mean past Doctor Who? What do you mean by that?
We were referring to Sarah Jane in this way, right?
I was talking about the Doctor.
Well, yeah, but like how he's affected by companions.
I'm talking specifically about the 10th Doctor, not the Doctor as a whole. I mean, as in this particular regeneration has a much more unhinged side, to the sense where he is very much heavily influenced in the big decisions by his companions. And when, like, you get an example like Waters of Mars, when he doesn't have that companion there to sort of level out his decision making to, a human point of view, that sort of conflict can sort of boil over. And that's one of the things I really like about this character.
I mean, I think that's not just the 10th Doctor. I think any Doctor can become unhinged when not around
and of course,
humanity for a long time.
And referring to like Genesis of the Daleks, for example, that's a good example
of the novel,
of this sort of thing.
Like, that's the whole point of the novel version of Human Nature, is that the Doctor has basically took it one step too far with Benny, so he decides, well, I'm going to find this thing to become human. Yeah. I'm going to do it. And
man, I like, Jacob, you shouldn't have brought up the novel Human Nature, because like I love that aspect about it. It's not like the TV version where he's just running away from the spooky monsters. It's because he realizes he's a cunt and he needs to take a step back and evaluate himself as a person. I adore that.
Okay, but that's partially because a lot of Davies' era was influenced by the VNAs.
But at the same time, it doesn't quite hit the same beats, does it? It changes just the right amount of things to be something completely different, and as such, it's not nearly as good. But I digress.
It's not nearly as good in some aspects. I'll admit it does some great stuff in other aspects.
But bringing us back into Sarah Jane, I think Liz Sladen as an actress is just pure magic. It's just Liz Sladen being Liz Sladen can always bring a tear to my eye no matter what. She's just wonderful to watch. I adore seeing her just play that character, because she loves playing the character so much. She's just magic. I
have a feeling that Davies, if he stayed on, would have invited more companions back. Like,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah, definitely.
And we all would have loved it, because
going back to what I was about to say though, the whole train track moral conflict thing. I was going to bring up Genesis of the Daleks, because in that example, it's very much Sarah Jane presenting a human point of view on the situation. The "do I have the right" scene, and in that moment, it's very much Sarah Jane learning the Doctor's morality around it, and the Doctor sticks with his own morality in that scenario. Whereas I feel like with Tennant and School Reunion, it's almost like the roles have reversed now, to where now it's very much Sarah Jane's morality convincing the Doctor rather than the Doctor's convincing Sarah Jane, if that makes sense. It's very much now the Doctor having less of a confidence with his moral scenario, if that makes sense.
Look,
Which
I gotta
would
be
make sense considering this-
Connor, I gotta be totally honest. I have no clue what scene you're talking about, and I think you're looking way too much into a very standard
I know exactly what he's talking
who monster
about.
runaround.
He's
Like,
talking about pain and loss. They define as much as happiness or love. It's that scene that he's talking about.
When fucking the Krillitane character tempts him with the power to bring back Gallifrey.
see, I
Do you
don't
know what
remember
scene
that.
I'm talking
I don't remember that scene, and I watched the episode kind of recently too.
It is
but
a scene. Joey, it is a scene.
It
It's
is a scene
I'm
that
sure.
exists.
Now that
I'm
he's
talking about it, I remember
I'm
it
not saying it doesn't fucking exist. I'm saying that, like, I think you're just looking a bit too much into it because it is a fairly standard Who runaround as a story
Not
with some
necessarily.
nostalgia thrown.
I think that scene very much fits in with a lot of other scenes you get in the 10th Doctor era, like in Fires of Pompeii and Waters of Mars. And it's also very similar to the scene in Genesis of the Daleks as well, in terms of moral conflict. I don't think it's accidental.
And it isn't. I'm actually going to agree with Connor on this one. Not entirely. I think there is a point to be made that it's nowhere near as polished a scene as, say, the Genesis one.
I wouldn't say that, no. I'm not going to say that the scene from School Reunion is anywhere near the level of Do I Have the Right? I'm not going to say that. But it does draw the same kind of moral conflict.
It is. It's also, I think, the 10th... there's a reason that even when I first watched Doctor Who, because I obviously started with the new series, I didn't like Tennant until School Reunion. Like, Sarah Jane coming back in School Reunion as part of, like,
I mean,
the 10th
to be
Doctor.
fair, that's the first story where you actually get screen time to be the Doctor, because in his first one, he's knocked out for most of it. In his second one, he's possessed by Cassandra. In his third one, he's pretending to be Scottish. So it's kind of the first story where he gets to be the Doctor for the whole thing.
And even then he has to be like Doctor from the past and has to like reminisce about all these old times. So like, when is the first time he actually gets to play the Doctor? Like,
Maybe Girl in the Fireplace?
in an original way. I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of Tennant's Doctor, Girl in the Fireplace, probably, because obviously that's a romantic story.
Yeah. All right, Brian, I'm going to politely ask that we move on because this is almost an hour
Next
already.
up is Martha.
Can I start with Martha, please?
Yes.
Fuck.
Joey just realized how long we're gonna be here.
Martha's a good character who, and I think I'm not going to be controversial in saying this. She's a good character. She was fucked over by the fact that that Rose had left, and Davies could not let go of his baby.
Yes.
I agree with this.
Oh,
Because
you're
I'm
so
gonna be honest.
right.
We've had this debate before.
Yeah, I know.
You're
And this
outnumbered
is gonna
3-1.
spiral. This is gonna fucking spiral.
And yes,
Fuck!
yes.
I hate
yes.
this conversation. Go
Connor,
ahead.
I know what you're going to say. Oh, the character art with Tennant. It's like a character arc. No, it's not. It's unnecessary melodrama.
It is. No, it is a character arc. You're wrong.
There isn't.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Wait. It's a character arc. It's just
Tennant
not a very...
Tennant does not
Shut
stop
the fuck
moping
up,
about
Jacob!
Rose until the end of the season. He does not. He does not stop moping about Rose until the end of the
That's
season.
not why it's a character arc. Though.
Jacob, shut the
Rose
fuck
is the
up.
cause of it, but it's not. It's not what. I
Okay.
mean.
Well, okay. So how about this, Connor? It's a character arc for Martha. In what way does this at all benefit
It's
the
a
Doctor?
character arc for the
Well,
10th
the Doctor is-
It's just
is
not a good one.
The Doctor's a very different character at the end of Series 3 than the start.
No,
The only
he's
thing-
not.
The
He
only
is.
thing,
He is the
absolutely
exact
is.
same cunt he was in Smith and Jones.
the only way to
exact
call he
same
gets
No,
is
he's
Martha
not.
calls him out.
No, he's not. He absolutely isn't. And the reason why he is so, when you look at Series 2 and you look at Series 4 and you look at the differences in the Doctor's character, it's because of the development in Series 3, and it's a fact. It's just there. You can't deny it. It is there.
it's a fact.
The only thing that has changed between Series 3 and 4 is that Rose has gone for that little bit longer, and Davies is actually allowed to have Rose in the series, so he doesn't have to spend all his time talking about
bullshit.
Rose.
It's absolute bullshit. The Doctor's
No!
character changes.
No,
It does.
in what way does the Doctor's character change throughout the course of Series 3? Because at the very beginning, he's just constantly focusing on how Rose isn't here and how Martha will never be Rose, and by the end, Martha literally... What's that?
Remember the part where I said we're talking about Martha?
Well,
here's
you
the
know,
thing. Joey,
this is still about Martha. Anyway, so like at the beginning, he's still moping about Rose and talking about how Martha will never be as good as Rose. And then by the end of the series, Martha literally points out to him that he has been ignoring her this entire time, and the doctor's like, "Well, okay." And then
That's
everything
not what. That's not what happens. That is
Nothing
not
has
what
changed
happens.
for the doctor.
That is not what happens. When was the last time you watched Partners in Crime?
Partners in Crime, just like 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, and do you remember the conversation he had with Donna about Martha Jones?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Very vaguely.
In that scene, he absolutely, and I'm not faking this is not paraphrasing, this is a quote from his dialogue. He says, "I belittled her, and it was all my fault." He says that.
Okay, here's the thing. That would work. The character arc would work if it actually progressed all through Series 3.
It did, though.
That's true. That's true because Davies only
Connor,
acknowledges it retroactively.
Connor,
No, he acknowledges it in series. He doesn't say it directly
In
to
Series
her.
4, at no point is it ever
Joey,
shown
shut up.
how the Doctor
It
has
is
changed.
shown.
throughout
No,
Series 3.
he doesn't say it in words to Martha, but it is absolutely shown that
It's
the
only
Doctor
shown-
starts
the
to
only-
realize
I'm
that
gonna
what he's
agree with
doing is
Connor
wrong.
The only
here.
evidence.
Yeah, I know. I really felt how the Doctor
Especially
changed
in
when
Human
he
Nature and
slowly
Family of Blood.
walked around the
Especially-
TARDIS and the Titanic crashed into there. Yeah, I really felt how he changed in that last scene with no dialogue.
The only catalyst for any
Titanic
change
scene,
is
I'm
when
talking
Martha
of-
actually says, "I'm done. I'm leaving you because
I'm
of what you
giving
did." That's
Connor the point.
And that's
He
how
doesn't
Martha
want-
changed. That is not how the Doctor changed.
He absolutely does change. You're wrong. It absolutely happens, and if you don't acknowledge it, then you're just blind. It happens in the story.
So Davies acknowledging it retroactively in Series 4 somehow makes there a fully fledged character arc in Series 3.
I use the example in Series 4 because it's an actual quote of dialogue that you can recognize and not ignore. It does happen in Series 3, but it's not said in exposition. Like, the only way I feel like I can even prove this to you is by quoting Series 4, because obviously, unless it's actually said in dialogue, you're just not going to believe me.
I've seen
absolutely
these
does
episodes so
happen in
many
Series
times.
3.
Of course I've seen it. Of course I acknowledge it. I see it there. But it's the very beginning of Series 4. He wrote a whole ass special in between. He got the criticism of Series 3 in between there, if there was any. If people were, still just writing Davies' dick the entire time and not
No,
willing to
there
actually
was. Trust
change
me, there
things
was
against-
criticism. There was criticism of Martha. From.
Oh yeah, there's obviously going to be criticism. I'm not denying that. But to say that arc doesn't happen is wrong, because
Well, no,
it
the
does
arc
happen.
happens.
It doesn't
Connor,
happen for the Doctor. It happens
Can
for
I-
It
can
does
can I
happen
get
for
a
the
word
Doctor.
in
It
edgewise,
does.
you
It happens
two?
for the Doctor and Martha Jones. Both
Can
of
I
them.
get like one word in edgewise?
Jacob, this is my fucking thing, and I haven't even gotten a word in edgewise.
I know,
It's
but
been Joey and Connor fighting.
here's the thing, Connor. Yes, there's an arc. The problem with the arc is that for the Doctor, it doesn't. There isn't any introduction of him realizing what he's doing
Yes, there is.
until the end
The
of
last
Series
scene of
3.
the Family of Blood absolutely is part
At
of
no
that
point
arc.
in that, in no point in that does he acknowledge what he's been doing to Martha this entire time. How he's
Yes, he
basically been
does.
emotionally
Yes, he
abusing her
does.
inadvertently.
Oh fuck yeah, he does. He's very much there's very much an acknowledgement of the contrast
Okay,
between John
okay.
Smith and the Doctor, and
No,
the
Martha
scene
spends
where
the
he says,
entire two-parter going like, "Oh no, the Doctor never notices me," and the Doctor still, by the end, doesn't notice her whatsoever and doesn't acknowledge
"Yes,
it.
he does. He recognizes her for looking after him. He's fucking grateful as hell for what she did to him in that two-parter."
He thanks her like he would thank any companion there.
It's all in the
See,
subtext.
I think that's where the
you
criticism
need
of the
to pay
arc comes from,
attention
Connor. Is that
to the
people?
subtext of the story, because of course he's not going to fucking say to her in dialogue that, because at this point he is so insecure about it that why the hell would he want to admit to her that he is in the wrong? Because obviously he's fucking like just his his vanity, his the way he feels about it, the situation. He isn't going to acknowledge it to her because he is so insecure about it. And that's why he says it to Donna in Series 4, because Donna is someone he can actually talk to about these sorts of things. He can trust her with these words. He doesn't have this tension with Donna over. That's why he has such a great friendship with her, because it's like the only person he feels like he can talk about these things with. And the reason why he doesn't talk about it with Martha is because he's insecure about it. But the growth still happens. It happens inside. It happens
but does it make him any less of a shitty person in series 3?
Well, if you think he's a shitty person, that's fair enough. But I think it's a brilliant character arc.
That we don't see him change until after the series is already over.
Absolutely changes.
Once the series is over, yeah, sure, whatever.
I can't imagine how else you would progress a character arc unless you had it happen to him earlier.
You show how he changes in the final episode rather than say anything.
No. The final episode is when the full end of the story happens. It's planned out to start in Smith and Jones and end in the finale, and from the start to the end is a progression to that point. It's a transition.
I wonder if...
I mean, just because it's acknowledged in the finale in dialogue doesn't mean that that's when it happens. It happens all throughout Series 3.
I wonder if part of the issue is coming...
in the way the Doctor views Martha from the beginning to the end. It changes all throughout. I rewatched Daleks in Manhattan, I rewatched Lazarus Experiment and 42 recently, and the way that he treats her there is different to the way she treats her at the start of the series, because he's starting to actually appreciate her as a person rather than pine after Rose. He's actually starting to appreciate her as a person. Even though he's not interested in her the way that she's interested in him, he does start to appreciate her. But then, of course, in Human Nature Family of Blood, when he becomes human, that then has a massive whiplash effect on that whole arc, because now, rather than his level-headed self becoming more appreciative of Martha, we now have this human who is only exposing his thoughts on, thinking about someone else, not being in love with her. And that very much is in the story, and that two-parter, that Human Nature two-parter, has such a big twist on this arc because it completely upsets all of that growth that they had.
Okay, so Connor,
Human Nature Family of Blood is not this damn cornerstone of the Martha Jones character arc.
When you get to the finale, that then makes it clear to Martha that even though he is friends with her and he appreciates her competence, he appreciates what she's learned, what she can do. The amount of times that she looked after him, like in Human Nature Family of Blood, like what she did in the finale, traveling the world to try and bring him back. Even though he acknowledges that, she accepts that he will never love her the way that she wants him to love her, and that's why she leaves. And there is character growth.
So my take on this...
Connor, I think you might have convinced me a little bit. I will give one criticism. I think Human Nature and Family of Blood would work better if it was earlier in the season. I think it's because you need to have that build up to that point, that natural build up, rather than. I feel like Human Nature should be the catalyst for the change.
In the spot, listen, if you had Human Nature in the spot that you have Daleks in Manhattan, it would feel rushed. It would feel like it would be too soon to do a story like that.
So I'm going to say you're completely wrong about this, because Human Nature Family of Blood could happen at any point, because the Doctor would appreciate any companion in the situation for helping him and protecting him. No matter who it was. It doesn't have to be Martha Jones. This is not some cornerstone in her development.
If they actually adapted that bit from the novel of some sort of fallout leading to it, instead of just chasing aliens.
Well, you could hang on a second, because what you're talking about is the idea of it going downhill before you get to that point, and you could have done that. However, the way they do it in Series 3, rather than that, is build up a positive connection before it gets ripped apart.
So
and
my take
scenario.
on this.
Well, my problem is there isn't really a positive connection because Martha.
Positive connection. At the end of 42, he gives her a TARDIS key. There's very much a positive connection.
Well, no, because for the first half of the season, my problem is that Martha is just it's literal. It's like Martha is treated too much like shit. Like it literally comes to the point of
That's the circumstances of the scenario, though. What do you mean treated too much like shit? Like, I don't think you realize, like, the Doctor isn't actually fully aware of the massive impact this is having on her.
Which makes him an awful fucking person.
No, it doesn't. It makes him not actually really understand how human emotions work. He is still very, and you always talk about how Tennant's a very human doctor, and that's true. But he is very much still an alien who doesn't fully understand.
What do you want him to be? Do you want him to be disconnected, or do you want him to be more human? What side do you want?
Well, it's not black or white, Joey. It's very complex. He is very disconnected in the sense that he doesn't understand not only the things he's saying having such a massive emotional impact on her, but also the fact of now that post-Time War, he has essentially adapted Earth as his new home. There is very much this conflict in the Davies era of him trying to fit in. This is the reason why, obviously the Ninth Doctor wearing the clothes he does, he's not this flamboyant figure anymore. He's very much wearing the black jacket, very much trying to fit in. He's very much trying to almost adapt human as his new home, trying to become almost a bit more human than he was. And now you got to the point where, not only in Series 2 with Rose, but also with Martha here, the Doctor very much, you can pretty much see that this is not working because he isn't human. He doesn't understand what it's like to be human. He can't have a relationship like a human can. And that's where this clash comes. Not only with Rose, the fact that what she wants is not what he wants, but also the fact that what Martha wants is not what he wants either. And him belittling her comes from the consequence of what happened with Rose in Series 2, but I don't think he's fully aware of how much of an impact that has on Martha until the very end of the series, or at least at some point it starts to build. He starts to realize how much this is hurting her. And
so does it build, or does it all happen at once? Because you just said two things.
No. The events in Series 3 build to him making that realization, and it's very clear by the end that he understands why Martha leaves. There's no pushback. He completely understands it. And he still wants her to travel with him because he wants that company. He wants that attention. He wants to be, he wants to have that connection. And you can very much see when you get to Partners in Crime, there's that scene where he's in the TARDIS talking and there's no one there. It's very much this Doctor, and arguably other Doctors as well, have that craving for that attention, have that craving for that friendship, that connection. And through these experiences with Rose and Martha, the reason why he's so much looking for that best friend is because he has come to the realization that he isn't human. He can't have that, that level of a connection with a human. He can't have that romantic connection at all because he's not human. And through those experiences, he learns that. Which is why when he meets Donna,
for the past 10 minutes,
when he meets Donna, it's such a perfect
Yes, I would remind you that I've been trying to say something for the past 10 minutes on my own video.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so what I was going to say, my take on that whole arc thing is
it's there. I don't feel like it's quite as prominent as you're making it out to be.
It's very much
it's there in the sense that as
like a.
You see, Brian, you got to pay attention to the subtext and the themes.
It's not like
all the very complex themes going on this series.
My grandma's dead, and I got dyspraxia. I can't ride a bike.
It's just a fact that, as the series goes on, Tennant starts treating her less and less shit. The things like, oh yeah, Rose would know what to do, become less and less prominent in later stories with her. So it's there. It's just not. It's just not as prominent. Does he start to
appreciate Martha more, but he also
he's making it out to
begins to formulate in his head that that's not, it's hurting her.
Then I'd argue that there is such a thing as too much subtext, and that might be the problem.
That's quite surprising coming from you, considering that you're a book reader.
What
I mean, are we going to ignore the scene at the end of Gridlock when he apologizes to Martha for lying? He essentially says to her that I do this because, I like to pretend that I am this sort of figure that I'm going to, I'm this romantic figure that I'm going to take you away, but I can't do that because I not only have grief over someone that I lost, I not only have grief over this planet that I had to destroy. Obviously, Dave the Doctor changes that, but whatever, fucking forget about that. But also the fact of that this person that you think I am is not who I am. I love that scene so much. That scene at the end of Gridlock is one of my favorite scenes in the show.
It's not a shame it means nothing for the rest of the series.
You're fucking wrong, Joey. It means a lot for the rest of the series. One of the reasons why they become such good friends in the next 3 stories is because of that scene. Because he's starting to be honest with her.
Sorry, are they friends in Lazarus Experiment? They barely acknowledge each other's existence in that story.
Lazarus Experiment.
Lazarus
to be
Experiment
to
is
be
just a
fair, they
shitty
are separated
episode.
for quite a bit of it, and also they have to deal with the fact that Martha's mum thinks the Doctor is like some fucking serial killer that's gonna, control her and rape her or something.
Is that what Lazarus Experiment was trying to do? Because
I think so, apparently.
Well, I mean, Martha's mother is very suspicious of why she was away traveling overnight, because Martha didn't tell her that they were going in time and space. And, it's very similar to, how Jackie is suspicious of the Doctor when he brings her back in Aliens of London as well.
Except here the reason Martha's mom is suspicious for the rest of the series is because the Master calls her up and is like, "Hey, that guy you're traveling, your daughter's with is very dangerous."
The Master is already there at the very start of the series, and he knows exactly what's happening, what's going to lead up to that point.
So I think we can all agree Lazarus Experiment is kind of shit in general. Like,
Oh yeah,
like
I definitely
like
think that.
You know what makes absolutely
I
no
don't like
sense
the
about them?
CGI.
I hate to get
CGI.
sidetracked, but like, it makes zero sense that the Master's entire plan is to stop Martha and the Doctor all throughout Series 3 when, like, if they weren't traveling together, he would never get there in the first place, like, because they're the ones that help him realize he's the Master again in Utopia, and that's how he gets back to
No, that's not what happens, Joey. That's not what happens.
How am I wrong now?
The Master is trying to get the trust of Martha Jones's parents so that he can use them as bait.
He does do that.
See, but then for the Master, how does he know exactly the point when, like, they've already gone through all that shit with him?
No, but he's not. No, but Joey, he's not trying to separate them. That's not what he's doing.
No. I'm saying like when he enacts his plan, how does he know the exact point when they've already unleashed him and like he can stop fucking with them?
What I don't understand what you mean by that, because it's very clear that the Master is aware of events that have already happened, like in terms of the Doctor and Martha, and he's using that scenario to his advantage to basically coax Martha's parents and family into his side, to use them as bait for the Sound of Drums.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. But then
it's trying to fuck up the Doctor and Martha to lead them to that point. Then that's not the.
All right, so we've been on this for we've been on this topic for 20 minutes. It is my fucking video.
But then how do you explain Lazarus Experiment at 42
Joey,
when Martha's mother literally tries to convince Martha to not travel?
Joey, you don't stop. You good? We're moving on. Cool.
Okay.
Good job, Felipe. We've been on this for 20 minutes. It's time to move on to Donna.
We warned you, Brian.
I don't think Donna's going to be that controversial. I hope.
Donna's brilliant. It's just a shame she's so fucking shite in End of Time. But other than that, she's great.
Agree, I suppose.
Anything else to say on Donna?
That's we're not going to say.
I don't hate her. I don't hate her character in End of Time, but I don't like how.
Well, it's another Russell T Davies can't really kill his babies.
The thing I don't like about it is the fact that he had no other way to have her escape the Master than just shoot halos out of her head. That was dumb. I don't like that. But apart from that, I love Donna. Great character, brilliant.
Yeah.
And perfectly placed, as I've stated, perfectly placed for the 10th Doctor's arc. At the right moment, when what he wanted was a best friend, she came along. And obviously, she was there in The Runaway Bride as well, so they had pre-existing history. But I
don't actually like Donna in Runaway Bride as much. I think.
I mean, she's a little bit more.
No, I still like her in Runaway Bride.
She's a little bit more surface level in The Runaway Bride, probably because she doesn't have that relationship with Wilfred yet. That's one of the.
Well, I think part of it's also she was just meant to be a one-off. She was never meant to be.
Hey, did anyone see during the watch along with Stolen Earth and Journey's End, like before it was decided that Donna was going to be a companion, Russell was considering having her be in charge of the Subwave network?
Yeah, it ended up being Sikoppa from Voyage of the Damned.
Jones. Dude, how brutal would that have been, though?
If he killed off Donna? Oh, fuck yeah. That'd be great.
Now, Series 4 is an interesting one because I know that Dylan's not a big fan of it because of very much... well, I mean, obviously he likes the series in terms of the stories, but one of the things he doesn't like about it that I know for sure is that a lot of Series 4 and the specials very much the storytelling revolves around people being brought together at the right time, and there's a lot of prophecy. Like, for example, right at the moment when the Doctor wants to see a best friend, he meets Donna again. Like, and like it's almost like there's a lot of coincidences that take place in Series 4.
Well,
like
Series 4, Series 4 it works better than the specials because Series 4 you have Dalek Khan at the end being all...
Yeah, like, it's not just prophecies, like, Dalek Khan is literally manipulating
It's not
time.
random telepath lady from Planet of the Dead. Because potato.
Potato? What's potato?
Because potato is my response to you don't have a reason. It happens because potato. Also known as a wizard did it.
Yeah. It is a little bit beyond. It's beyond sort of the sort of natural conventions of a sci-fi story. It is beyond that. It's very much entering that sort of supernatural territory, and I can understand why someone wouldn't like
Series
that.
4 it works because you have Dalek Khan as Russell implies as the character. Yeah, the character who has gone through the time vortex, been driven mad. He's probably secretly been pushing things together behind the scenes because. Yeah.
Because he got spread throughout like the time vortex.
But
after
I don't like the whole
Dalek.
"you're the most important person in the universe" of.
There's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah, that was
Journey's End.
the dialogue in that was a little bit heavy-handed. That's the only sort of issue I have with Turn Left is that line. I'm like, oh, that was a bit far.
But I also like the implication that there's been a lot of time between Series 3 and 4 to have 10 reflect. Like, I know that's where I think they place his comics-only companions usually.
Yeah.
Or between Series 4 and the specials sometimes, but
that doesn't really work, does it? Placing them between the specials and Series.
But it very much going off what you said, he's at that point at the start of Series 4, he's very much doing what he ends up doing again in the specials, is trying to avoid having a companion because he doesn't want to make the same mistakes he made before. He's very much regretting and he's very much in anxiety over that idea. But then eventually it gets to the point where he's just so lonely that he just desperately wants a friend. And I think perfectly into Donna. I think their chemistry is magic. I love them together.
I'm going to be honest. Series 4 is I don't like the finale that much. Stolen Earth's fine. Journey ends. I think Journey's End just.
Stolen Earth I think is brilliant. Journey's End falls the fuck apart, but Journey's End is Stolen Earth is great.
But it doesn't fall the fuck apart nearly as much as say Last of the Time Lords.
Well, see, here's what I think. I think like Last of the Time Lords and Journey's End are total opposites. Like Last of the Time Lords builds up to how shit it's gonna be. Journey's End starts right at the fucking start. It's just like, oh, and fake out regeneration. Fuck that. So they're shit in very different ways. So I think like Journey's End works its way down. Last of the Time Lords builds up to the shit.
Well, one thing I will say about the fake out regeneration and Journey's End is that one thing I like about it is that it actually stems into a story that takes place throughout the entire episode rather than just completely being ignored for the rest of it. Like it actually creates the Meta-Crisis storyline. So there is actually
still really
follow-up
shit.
to it. I like it. I mean, it's weird, but I like it.
It's better. I just don't. I think it's just not good. It's not. But it's not like.
The only good thing that come out of the Meta-Crisis Doctor thing is Donna's exit. That's the only good thing.
Well, I mean that whole.
Well, no,
I mean, when you think about like,
Last of the Time Lords hits worse because that does Jesus Doctor out of nowhere. At least they set up the Doctor losing a hand. And that we knew that Jack had a hand in Torchwood.
I won't bat for that one because that will take fucking forever, and I don't want to waste time. But you are right about the setup in Christmas Invasion. Essentially, the Sycorax saved the universe indirectly because they cut off the Doctor's hand, and that's what fucking rips the Dalek army apart.
The big problem with Journey's End is just the logical paradox of the reality bomb doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah,
so it's weird, and I think there is a slight silver lining that I think can justify it, kind of, but it is very contrived.
Yeah, I hate that.
But
shit.
the small caveat I have to it is the whole thing about the Medusa Cascade, and the idea is that whilst there are like infinite parallel universes, there's only one Medusa Cascade, and the fact that all of the other Davroses and all the other universes didn't get there first, and I think that's
is it confirmed that there's only one Medusa Cascade, or is that just
it's very much like you have to really dig deep, because I think that's the whole theory behind it. But regardless of like that detail, that detail only exists to cover up how contrived the reality bomb is otherwise. Because
it's part of the problem of Davies' ever like it's in Davies' finales is that he's building up the threat like so much more than the last finale.
So like a multiverse level. He's building up to a multiverse level, yeah.
Which is it's kind of a problem that then Moffat had to deal with, and I don't think Moffat ever dealt with. Chibnall's still kind of dealing with it because it's like Davies went to like the vague concept of time. You can't go bigger than that.
Yeah.
Like
Brian, I don't think we're talking about Donna anymore.
I don't think so either.
Anyway,
So
Donna's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. Love her. Great character.
Her audios with Tennant are enjoyable. Like even if the scripts aren't
fun.
She's a character.
You can nut over that in a second.
I'd love to see more of.
So, do we want to talk about Wilfred?
I mean,
He's
we'll just
lovely.
say the exact same things. He's really
lovely.
great. That's about
He's
it.
the saving grace of End of Time for me.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
We're done with the companions now.
Yay! Only took an hour and 20 minutes. Yay!
All right. So now we're going to talk about the big bad boys, the Cult of Skaro.
Oh fuck yeah, we gotta talk about that, don't we? Well, you know what? I actually do really like the Cult of Skaro. Can I take this one away?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is an aspect of the Tennant era I do really like. It's because obviously when you take the idea of the Time War from before New Who, and you wipe out all the Daleks and all the Time Lords, you can't have Doctor Who without Daleks, and you have to work your way back up to having it at a point where they can still be mainstays in the Doctor Who universe. And the entire Davies era is actually getting them back to that point, and I actually really appreciate that. So avoiding all the Eccleston stuff, you realize that there's this very small sect of Daleks that exist. They survived the Time War. They're called the Cult of Skaro, and they exist sort of. They weren't really involved in the Time War. They were working from behind the scenes. So we see them in Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, and they don't offer terribly much to the plot, but we establish who they are, and I really appreciate that.
And we establish them as a threat. They are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are. They are a
threat.
threat. Like I know.
They are also so intelligent that they are fucking hilarious.
True, but I know something Dylan complains about a lot. But like, I don't mind the fact that no Dalek gets killed in Army of Ghosts Doomsday because you do establish them as a threat. So then you take them into Daleks of Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks, and they're the one thing about that story that I really do love.
Yeah,
I love the way you evolve their characters and you take them to basically a new level. They're figuring out, as much as the audience is, how the Daleks can continue to survive. How can we?
Though Dalek sec human hybrid is shit. That's
well, yeah, that's really shit. But also, I don't mind the moral dilemmas that it brings up. I do appreciate that part of the plot. So then you kill off almost the entirety of the Cult of Skaro. You seem like it's completely desperate, and then Dalek Khan gets away. I love that because you're just like, how the fuck can we get back from this? And then you get Stolen Earth: Journey's End. One of the many reasons I love Stolen Earth is it brings back the Dalek army with this absolute force, and Khan is the sole surviving member of the Cult of Skaro, and he has entirely revitalized the Dalek Empire because he has changed time by saving Davros from the Time War.
And the implication clearly is
Daleks,
that
and you've not only revolutionized the Daleks again, you've made them a threat. You've made them a mainstay in the Doctor Who universe. Only problem is Victory of the Daleks comes next. But beyond that, I really appreciate what they offer to Doctor Who.
Moffat.
Yeah, that's Moffat's fault.
Jadis.
Both. The boys, the lads. It's all their fault.
I actually completely agree with everything Joey just said.
I agree too. I also going to add on top of that, I love the fact that in Army of Ghosts Doomsday, it's established the kind of threat they have and the fact that they are, against the Cybermen at least, they are quite sort of almost indestructible. And then I like the fact that leading into Daleks in Manhattan, it essentially makes it that, well, how are you going to destroy these Daleks that we saw that were so indestructible in Amigos Doomsday? Essentially, they end up killing each other. They end up self-destructing through their just complete and utter,
And I think they would probably self-destruct even if the Doctor wasn't there. Like...
Yeah.
At least to an extent, maybe not entirely, because...
Yeah.
So this brings up a question that I have now. Who do we prefer as... Which of the Daleks in the Cult of Skaro is everyone's favorite?
Only fucking Brian Corrigan. Briar
here's the
fucking
thing.
2 would bring up, so who's your favorite Dalek in the Cult of Skaro?
My big
Fuck
criticism
off,
is that the two that aren't Dalek Khan and Dalek Sec don't get any development, really.
Yeah, Jest and what's the other one?
They, I think.
Yeah, I think in terms of the plot, Khan gets the most, but in terms of a character, I think Sec gets the most.
Yeah.
I think Khan's my favorite because I just love Khan's grander role in
I love him in
more. But also I fucking love Briggs's performance as Khan in
The Doctor is coming.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And also I love that prop, the way it like wriggles around. It's so cool to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff.
Hell
yeah! We actually had a coherent conversation, and I hit the nail on the head first try.
I really like Dalek Sec because in the first story he's in, he's the funniest character in it. Like the comedic lines in Doomsday from Dalek Sec are fucking brilliant. He's like, and he doesn't even know it. Like the Daleks and the Cybermen don't even know that they're funny, but because it's literally two computers talking to each other, or at least organisms controlling computers talking to each other that are a little bit less human, it's just fucking hilarious.
It also helps that Davies understands that the whole Daleks versus Cybermen debate is stupid because the Daleks would win. Like, the Cybermen aren't indestructible people.
Which is interesting because Dylan hates it because he wishes the Cybermen were equal with them, but I don't know. He's not here, so he doesn't matter.
Yeah, Dylan, you're fucking wrong, man.
Well, yeah, the Daleks and Cybermen are equally
Everyone
equally
cancel Lord Slug, unsubscribe from the Lord Slug YouTube.
They're equally compelling villains, but they're compelling in completely different ways. Like...
Yeah. What was the one classic Who story that was supposed to be Daleks and Cybermen? I forget. I totally forgot what it was.
Was it? Oh shit! Was it Wheel in Space?
Yes.
Yes, that was
Wheel
it.
in Space.
Yep, you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would have been cool. A '60s black and white Cyberman versus Daleks.
It would have been interesting.
How cool would
to
that
say
be?
the least.
Yeah.
Terry Nation
well,
was just
if
like,
it was written by David
fuck
Whittaker,
you.
it would have probably been brilliant because David Whittaker is David Whittaker.
Shit. So,
Right.
we're doing best and worst, Brian?
Yes, we are doing best and worst.
Ooh, okay.
All right. So we're going to start off with the worst. 'Cause I feel like that'll definitely take us a long time. And then we'll go to best.
Don't we usually take it by series? We do like series 2 and decide on one for each, and then we do series 3 and do one for each.
Yeah, but I'm saying we're going to be doing worst first.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
All right. So, worst of
Fear
series
her.
2, Connor.
Fear her.
The Idiot's Lantern.
No, fear her.
I'm with Joey. Fear her is.
I mean,
the
I'm
worst.
not gonna fight that one because they're basically the same episode. They're just slightly different in
You know,
execution.
they really are. For the longest time, they kind of melded together in my brain.
Yeah, they're literally the
that's fair.
exact
They're just
same
seen as-
thing.
they're just
with
seen
a
as-
I can't
different coat of
actually
paint.
decide what I think is the worst.
One's in the past, one's in the future. Idiot's Lantern is forced down your throat. Fear her has no script, so they just make it up on the spot.
Come
It
on,
also might be
Brian.
because
Make
I
a
just
decision.
don't like Matthew Graham as a
I can't
writer.
actually
I don't
decide
either.
which
I hate
I think
the
is
flesh
worse.
department.
Is it
I hate the
Idiot's
flesh
Lantern
department.
or is it Fear Her? I don't know
It's
which.
fear her. Come
they're-
on.
They're both pretty fucking suckage in my opinion.
Yeah. For me, I think I said this in the series 2 review on Joey's channel. The reason why I prefer Fear Her is because I find it I don't find it as obnoxious. I find it very sort of light and fluffy, whereas Idiot's Lantern is very forced down your throat, which is why
I find the acting in Fear
for
Her
me,
atrocious, just all around.
that too, but for me at least, like the
Yeah,
Idiot's
Jacob's got a point.
The Idiot's Lantern script is also like shit Gatus, and shit Gatus is still fun for me.
Because it's
That's
shit
also
gay.
true, Joey.
I like other kinds of shit gators, but not that one.
I could handle it.
Well, the big problem with Fear, no one can act in that story.
Yeah,
Oh.
I gotta go with
Yeah, I know,
Fear.
I know that. And objectively speaking, you're right. But for some reason, I just find it really funny to watch. Whereas Idiot's Lantern is just aggravating. It just hurts me.
See, Connor, you have my thing with retroactive watching. You're just like, yeah, I know this is fucking awful, but I could just laugh at it.
I know, and I do that all the time.
I remember when I showed Time Flight to my brother. He wanted to fucking tear his eyeballs out, and I was just sitting there laughing my ass off.
Dude, anytime I watch Time Flight, I want to fucking tear my eyeballs
if it's any
out.
consolation, I enjoy Fear Her more, and that's the only reason why I think I prefer it to Idiot's Lantern, because Idiot's Lantern I just can't watch. It's just pain.
Yeah, fair.
All right, so
best Impossible Planet Satan Pit.
Girl in the Fireplace.
I'm gonna go with Connor on that one.
I'm going with Joey, mainly because Impossible Planet Satan Pit is a VNA done on television.
And big shout out for second place for me, at least, School Reunion.
Really?
I love School Reunion.
Second place for me is Rise of the Cybermen and Age of
Oh, fuck Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel.
Second for me is Impossible Planet Satan Pit.
See, second for me is School Reunion, then followed by Girl in the Fireplace. But that's because...
Jacob, I actually like you this video. This is a rare occasion.
I'm not going to fight that one. I think Impossible Planet Satan Pit is also a brilliant...
Can we all agree that Series 2 is Tennant's worst series, though, just because it has... just
it just has the weakest story.
The thing is, not just Series Rose. 3 and 4 are two of my favorites, so it's kind of... 2 is kind of the weakest by default for me, but I still really like it.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the worst of Series 3 then?
If I were choosing individual episodes, I would say Last of the Time Lords, but because I consider it a larger story, I'm going to say Lazarus Experiment.
I'm going
to say the Dalek two-parter. I'm sorry.
No, that one's at least fun.
I'm going to agree with Joey on that.
Lazarus, yes.
I don't know.
For me, it's between Lazarus and 42, and they tend to flip-flop depending on my mood.
I forgot about 42.
42 is passable.
Yeah, I don't know. 42 is more consistent, but I feel like Lazarus, for me, the highlights of Lazarus are quite good, so I would say 42 just slightly below Lazarus. But it could be either. Could be either for me.
Man, it feels weird to actually be on the right side.
Having said that, though, I still like both those episodes. So it's no big deal for me.
All right. So best of Series 3, Human Nature, Family of Blood for me.
Blink. Come on,
I'll say Blink. Yeah, I'll say Blink.
Blink. Can I be the weirdo who ties them both because they fucking
see Jacob? I really do want to say Human Nature, Family of Blood, and it would be a lot closer for me if I hadn't read the book. But the book just fucking destroys the TV version for me. Not destroys
the book. You two need to read the book. The
book is so
really good.
But also special shout out to Utopia. If it wasn't part of Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords, it would be one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, for me, this is a very similar scenario with Series 2 in the sense that Blink is my favorite, but Human Nature, Family of Blood is just behind it.
Can we all agree, the second half of Series 3 is almost a masterpiece? The first half is kind of shit.
I love it. No, Joey, I got to disagree with you there.
Can we not do this again? Can we please not do this again?
You know, I'm going to agree with Connor. Shakespeare Code and Smith and Jones are good episodes.
I'll agree with those two. See, I like a lot of the first half.
I have a big hot take, Joey.
But I'm not very passionate.
I have a big hot take.
What?
Gridlock is one of my favorite episodes of all time.
You know what?
No. It treats the Macra boys.
I knew you'd say that because Brian's a Macra wanker.
Gridlock's a good story.
How dare they make the Macra so shitty?
Gridlock's a good story. The problem is they shouldn't have made the Macra shitty because. Why use them if you're not gonna like?
I like it.
But also the macro. See, no, because the macro. I'm gonna agree with Connor here. The macro are a one-off idea. If you're gonna bring them back, it's gonna be a piss take.
No. What I like about it though is the fact that in the Macra Terra, the whole thing is that the Macra own the humans, whereas here it's the reverse. Although, to be fair, they don't really have any dialogue.
So you're saying, Connors, it's got the themes.
Well, yeah, suppose so. And they also make for some pretty cool action sequences for me.
No.
Though the CGI is a little bit dated, but I still like it.
I mean, the CGI is a little bit dated, as almost all of.
I fucking love
Doctor
Gridlock.
Who.
I love Gridlock. I love everything about it. It's just beautiful.
Smooth talking boys alone.
All right, are we moving on?
Yes, we're moving. Series 4.
Worst, I'm gonna say Doctor's Daughter. Doctor's Daughter.
Oh right, Doctor's Daughter.
By far, because I really like all the other stories, but Doctor's Daughter is just not that good.
Fucking Doctor's Daughter. Oh,
I was
fucking
gonna say,
Doctor's Daughter.
Series 4 is very close to being a perfect season. Then Doctor's Daughter just sort of happens.
In Doctor's Daughter.
It
I mean,
sticks out.
I'm a little iffy on the Sontaran two-parter, but like Doctor's Daughter, just fucking.
Sontaran two-parter is passable.
It's in.
I like it. I don't particularly love it. It's a bit like the Dalek two-parter in Series 3. I don't particularly love it, but I do really enjoy it.
Hot take: it should have had the Brig in it. It should have had.
Yeah, it should have. It should have had the Brigadier. But no, Doctor's Daughter definitely sticks out for me. It's just all
And
the other.
Jacob, how is that a hot take, Jacob?
I mean, without
no one's
even
going to disagree with it. Should have had Nick Courtney in it.
yeah, I mean, without even going into the plot, like you could go into the plot, but just purely on an entertainment level, every other episode in Series 4 is just so watchable, and Doctor's Daughter just isn't. It's very weird.
Brian, you agree? Doctor's Daughter is the worst.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and best has got to be Midnight.
Yep.
Ooh.
Actually, wait, no.
This is hard for me. For me, it's either Turn Left or Midnight.
I think
No,
it's
it's
Turn
Midnight.
Left for me.
No,
Turn Left.
no.
I'm saying it's Midnight because I think who it's going to be best is what type of fan you are. Like Joey and I love the stories that are paranoia and like the one room base under siege type thing.
Also, Turn Left is hard overrated.
No, it's brilliant, Joey. Shut up.
No. Turn Left is brilliant. Shut up, Joey.
I mean, it's still really good, but it's really fucking overrated.
No, mate, no. The reason I think I like Midnight.
Joey, you
I
don't understand. You don't understand, Joey. Joey, you don't understand how long I've waited for Jacob to say that to you.
What did he say? Like, I didn't even hear what he said.
I said, Turn Left is brilliant. Shut up, Joey.
Okay.
Here's
Whatever
the deal.
you say. Whatever you say, One Eye.
I like Midnight and Turn Left about the same as each other, but the reason why I would, if I was forced to choose between them, I would choose Turn Left is because I liked Turn Left when I was a kid, whereas I didn't like Midnight when I was a kid, and that's the only difference.
See, here's the thing. I actually had the reverse experience.
I can put between them
because
because I like them exactly the same. I just think they're both masterpieces. I fucking love them.
Oh yeah, and Midnight also has like so much rewatch value, and it gets better every single time.
I like both about the same.
I'm also really glad we never got any answers to Midnight because
it's so perfect. It's my favorite New Who episode. I love Midnight.
All right. Specials.
Imagine saying fucking Turn Left is better than Midnight.
I think Turn Left would be even better.
I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying I like it the same.
Okay.
Guys, the Trickster in Turn Left. Discuss.
What?
Shut up. What?
I haven't seen the Sarah Jane Adventures, so I can't comment.
The Trickster is a bitch boy. Okay.
Isn't that Bradley Walsh?
Yeah, it's Graham. It's Graham before he got cancer.
Bradley Walsh played.
Before he got cancer.
Is the Trickster played by
and then the chemotherapy made him really boring.
All right, so Brian, I'm going to request for the specials that we do best first and then worst, because I think we're going to spiral into a debate with worst. So best, I think we can all agree, is Waters of Mars.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Waters of
It's
Mars.
a good one.
Going off what you said about Series 4, Joey, Waters of Mars is my favorite episode of New Who.
Worst for me is easily Planet of the Dead.
No, End of Time, you cunt.
Nope, it is Planet of the Dead.
No, it's
I
End of Time.
I haven't seen Planet of the Dead in a long time, so I'm not sure. But I used to always go.
Did it in the marathon.
I used to go. No. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when you did Planet of the Dead.
Are you sure?
No, I wasn't there. I was.
No, you were. No, you fell asleep for Aliens Into World War III, and then you joined on
Planet of the Dead. And Planet of the Dead. No,
Seriously?
I joined for the Lodger.
I can't stand Planet of the Dead. I can sit down and have a little bit of fun with End of Time, but Planet of the Dead is
it's End of Time, guys. End of Time is the fucking worst.
I don't know. I enjoy Planet of the Dead. I don't really know
You
what's wrong with it.
enjoy Planet of the Dead?
What's wrong with it? I mean, it's not that. I mean, it's nothing special. But
I kind of like Planet of the Dead. It's all right. It's better than Next Doctor.
I mean, it's a little bit uneventful, but I don't know, the whole heist thing is cool. I like how they get. I love the whole joke of like how the Doctor tells Christina to get the diamond, and then he doesn't even need the diamond; he just needs the clamps. That was really funny.
Also, what makes Planet of the Dead even more shit? Jacob, didn't you say something like it was meant to be an adaptation of a book, and then it just completely fucking failed?
It was meant to
see, Brian, that was me who told you about it being an adaptation of the highest science.
It's meant to be an adaptation of the highest science, but like the only thing that ever ends up doing is it takes the bus going through a wormhole.
Okay, wait. So, Jacob, can you at least agree with me? It's End of Time, please.
Oh yeah, it's End of Time.
Thank you, Jesus Christ.
End of Time. Remember, End of Time. I gave a 0 out of 10.
Yeah, I knew Connor was going to disagree with me at End of Time, but Brian, you absolute cunt. Are you serious?
It really is Planet of the Dead for me, dude. I cannot stand that episode. The only two times I've watched...
It was my least favorite episode of Doctor Who.
Joey, the only two times...
I thought it was Delta and the Bannerman.
The only two times I've seen Planet of the Dead...
It was for a while, but the Delta's my least favorite classic Who.
Right, and then, I mean, as far as I'm aware, Jacob, isn't it like Delta and the Bannerman, End of Time, and Hellbent are all like the circle of your least favorites, right?
That and Strange England, which is a novel I hate.
Jacob, Strange England is not that bad.
Possibly irrationally.
Joey.
Jacob, yeah, you hate it irrationally.
Joey, I have only seen Planet of the Dead.
Shadowland.
Joey, I have only seen Planet of the Dead twice because I cannot stand it.
I will
rewatch Brian.
I will say I do have a slight soft spot for Planet of the Dead because when it came out, my great granddad taped it on VCR, so it was a very special experience when I was young. So I do have a little bit of a connection to that episode, but it's nothing special. It's whatever. I never rewatch it, Planet of the Dead. I just don't really ever go to it.
I've only seen it twice because I can't stand it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go for Next Doctor. I don't know. One of those two.
The only reason I've seen Delta and the Bannerman more than Planet of the Dead is because I've been forced to sit down and watch Delta and the Bannerman a couple times.
Jesus Christ.
So, Brian.
God, is it really that bad, Brian?
Delta and the Bannerman? I hate...
No. Planet of the Dead. Is it really that bad?
I think Planet of the Dead might be in my bottom 10.
Brian, it is not that fucking bad. You are exaggerating so much.
Cool. I like the setting of like the desert. It's cool.
No, it's fucking shit.
And Christina's a fun character. I like her.
You can't convince me that it is.
I like the sort of group on the bus. I don't know. It's very generic, but I like it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Looks cool. It's the first HD story, so that's got that going for it.
It's very average for me, but I can have fun watching it. It's like a 5 hour.
I don't agree with the production of it.
Or the CGI was rushed, but
Well, one, they CGI'd all the desert. It's like, look, you went to Dubai, which I think you could have gotten better shots if you went to America to film, and then Davies could actually have been on set, and that might have helped a little bit.
I can actually, to be fair, I can see the argument for it to be like a really, like, if you were to say that, this is the most like phoned in Davies era story, I can understand that.
Well, partly because Davies wasn't on set at all.
Yeah, it does feel a bit weird.
And because he was so heavily involved with his era and his spin-offs, like, it feels less connected in that way.
And it's one of those episodes I always forget exists. Like Planet of the Dead.
Like when you hear stories about Davies' involvement on the actual production of stories, like the man was so dedicated. Did you ever hear that one about Torchwood about I guess spoilers for Torchwood kind of about Owen's character arc? Because it was originally supposed to be Yonto, but then Russell changed his mind. It was like, it's got to be Owen, and I won't. If you've already filmed it, I will make you go back and refilm it. I don't care if your mother is dead and you're at her funeral, or if it's Christmas, you will redo it, and it's going to be Owen.
Brilliant, Sharon. Love him. Love the man. Love
What a
the
fucking
boy.
guy. Yeah.
Again, I'm going to be honest. As much as we shit on Davies and Moffat, they're still great.
Even Chibnall, they're all dedicated to the show.
Chibnall's an absolute professional, man. Like, the amount of work he puts into, like, avoid spoilers, the fact that he shifts his schedule to have it 15 months rather than 12, so, like, you can give the production time to breathe, like, the amount
of bullshit the internet puts him through.
The way he managed to convince the BBC to make his episodes
there's
really
there's so much shit
expensive,
going
he's done a lot.
going around Davies, Moffat, and Chibnall, and they're all, like, really solid choices for showrunner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for as much as like we don't like what they've done with the show, I do admit that.
Here's the thing. Even for every time they have done something that we don't like, they've also done something that we do like.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. For every End of Time, there's a Midnight. For every Hellbent, there's a Heaven Sent. And for every Timeless Children, there's what's typically like It Takes You Away.
I mean, I know you like Spyfall a lot, Joey, don't you?
I love Spyfall. Oh yeah, Spyfall is brilliant. I think at least.
I really liked Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
And I really like the Haunting of
Series 12.
Diodati.
Yeah,
Hang on, wait, Brian. What do you think of Can You Hear Me? Oh, okay. Because the other
I love it.
I like it too. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I love that one. All right,
Chris Chibnall, contact Kate Orman and get her to write for the show.
Yes.
So expanded universe time.
So I think I'm the only one here. I think I'm the only one here who's actually like had a fair amount of 10th Doctor expanded universe.
I'll just quickly say my bit and then I'll dip out because I don't know the rest. The only expanded universe I've ever had is I tried to watch the Infinite Quest and Dreamland and I got 5 minutes in and turned it off. I was like, fuck that. What else is there? Oh, I remember as a kid I used to play Attack of the Grask on the website. That was fun. And also I have listened to the Volume 2 10DAs. I've also listened to a little bit of the Donna one, but I've listened to the Rose ones and they were interesting to listen to, but fairly generic stories, and that's all I got to say. He's actually quite... I would actually argue that the 10th Doctor is actually the weakest on Big Finish for me. I'm not a big fan of Wade. He's very totally surface level. He's very surface level.
Well, the problem is they Big Finish's problem with 10 in audio has been they're just playing up the nostalgia of its 10.
Well, also the fact
that they're not actually to do anything interesting with
a lot of what I like about him on TV is within the actual story it's telling at the time, whereas I feel like a lot of the Time War stuff they can't really do now. And so Big Finish, all they can do is just, let's just have his surface level personality and not reference any of his grief.
I mean, there are some good stories in there. Like I do like
Death and the Queen is really good.
Death and the Queen's good, but my favorite from Volume 1 was Time Reaver. I love that.
And Connor, you may like if you've listened to the third volume, which is the 10 Donna and then Wolf is in one of them. That one's actually a really good volume.
Yeah,
what was that one? No Place. I love No Place.
No Place. Good. I love the Creeping Fog. That was really nice.
The Creeping Death, you mean?
The Creeping Death. Why did I call it the Creeping Fog? What's the other one?
Because it's about fog. Oh, actually, you know what? I listened to Donna Noble Kidnapped. That was brilliant. I loved that.
Yeah. The only comments I can really give is I thought one of the things I like about Volume 2 is it's interesting because the actors are very different to where what they were on the TV show. Like they're so much older now, and like Billie Piper feels way different as a performer than she did then. Like she's older, she feels a lot more warm and motherly, whereas in the show she was very much young. And then also the Doctor obviously being quite surface level. But in terms of the stories, I thought Cold Vengeance was kind of average. Like it was a bit disappointing that it's like, 10th Doctor Ice Warrior story, and it's like, it's just fucking generic.
I'll agree with that as like a huge fan of the Ice Warriors. I was massively disappointed by
the Chevalier one was like a bit different, but I don't know, it just lost me about halfway through. I was like, I don't know, this is a bit weird. And then Infamy of the Zaros was probably the most engaging one, but it is literally just like a meta joke about reality TV. And Rose trying to like teach some young girl about bullying is fucking heavy-handed, and I don't like it.
Can we consider Torchwood Dissected part of it because it's got Martha in it? Because
Yes.
Torchwood Dissected was fucking brilliant.
It was.
And Jacob,
It was-
I love that one.
It was
it's
really
also
good.
it's also a sneaky classic Who sequel, and yeah.
I'm just gonna dip out for a second if that's all right.
Oh, we're about to wrap up anyways.
Oh well, I've got nothing else to say about Expanded, so I suppose
neither really do we, because I hate to say it, Classic Who, there's a ton of expanded universe stuff. For New Who, there's basically the BBC books and your occasional Big Finish, and
Tales
let's
of
be
New
honest.
Shut up! Fuck off with your Tales from New Earth. Fucking hated that.
Let's be honest. The BBC books have the problem of they are basically just television stories that are written in book form.
See, no, that's a lie, because Prisoner of the Daleks is the only 10th Doctor book I've read, and that's brilliant up until the last, 30 pages where it gets really shit.
That's because it's a Trevor Baxendale novel, and they're all the same.
Well, actually, I remember a lot of the crew of his generic space fleet in Prisoner of the Daleks. So I think we've had this conversation, Brian, where Trevor Baxendale just writes the same 5 supporting characters over and over.
Oh, he does. I mean, he's great, and I love him.
But no, I did like Prisoner of the Daleks. That one's really good.
I'll dip out for a bit, by the way.
All right. That one's actually really good though, because the Dalek in that is really brutal. Love the one that they focus on in that. What other 10th Doctor? Oh, Rose Tyler Dimension Canon was a lot better than I expected it was going to be. Kind of falls apart towards the end, but it's all right.
I want to talk to you about Tales from New Earth, because I've heard that.
No,
we're talking.
No,
we're talking about.
No, we're not. We're not talking about Tales from New Earth. No,
we're talking about Tales from New Earth, and how if you're going to get into the Doctor Who expanded universe, that is the one thing you must avoid at all costs.
Brian, can you agree with me? That is the worst Big Finish thing
I subjected myself to it, Joey. I subjected myself to it. I can kind of remember the first 3 episodes. I may not have even finished it. I don't think I mean,
there's clearly a reason that they made it free.
It is the single worst Big Finish production I've ever heard. I fucking despise that thing.
I mean, my least favorite Doctor Who story from Big Finish is Bang Bang and Boom. Whatever. Cool. That's a debate for another day. But in terms of spin-offs, Tales from New Earth has to take the fucking cake. It's so shit.
1 Mile Down from 10 DAs 3. That was really good. The one with the Judean training. I love that.
Yeah.
That was fun. Anything else really good?
I can tell you about things I've heard about being really good.
Oh, I read Prisoners of Time recently. That the 10th Doctor bit in that was actually pretty good.
Oh, you know what I've read? I've read some of 10's comics.
Apparently his comics are supposed to be really good, especially the Titan run.
The Titan run of comics is actually pretty solid. I'll give it that. Out of all the Titan comics, that one's probably the most
which
the show that there is, because the others are. I'm kind of fuck whatever. It's kind of shit.
Well, I know isn't 11's Titan comics run do a Brexit parody, and it's really cringe.
11's.
You know what? I just don't want to read the 11th Doctor Titan comics because the artwork is god awful.
Yeah, the stuff for Tennant's actually pretty good. So
yeah. What was I gonna say though? Oh yeah. So you know one of my favorite 10th Doctor Big Finishes are the last story of Legacy of Time, because the 10th Doctor appears in that, and it's actually really good.
Oh yeah, he does appear in that, doesn't he?
Brilliant.
Legacy of Time is just brilliant all around.
I love Legacy of Time.
Legacy of Time was good.
Yeah.
I like
all right. I love how Benny was played in Legacy. I love Tennant and Benny together.
Benny.
Fucking, you have a Metacrisis 10 moment with Benny.
No,
Benny.
Come here, Benny. Show off you.
It is canon that the Doctor and Benny, did it, had sex.
Yeah. She just goes, "You're naked," and he goes, "Oh yes."
Time to reenact.
No, Brian, I'm gonna request right now that we end this fucking show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're gonna end this now. I actually hate these motherfuckers. Joey, do you have anything you want to plug?
Okay, let's do plugs. Oh, wait, do you allow... You never did plugs on these before. Okay, so let's do plugs.
That's because I usually end them really abruptly to piss off Dylan.
Well, I'll do plugs. All right, so coming up on Security Kitchen Productions. When's this coming out again, Brian?
Soon.
God damn it, that doesn't help me at all. Okay, so I think
this will come out before Warhead is out.
Okay, so Warhead Part 1 should be coming out soon. I think it comes out May 8th?
9th. It's 9th.
Warhead Part 1 comes out May 9th, and then it has a 3-part weekly release followed by behind-the-scenes video. The following week, we got that. We have Celestial Podcast coming up. We're doing the next couple Big Finish main ranges. Love and War audiobook is continuing. I think I should be on like chapter 10 or something by the time this comes out of 18. So coming up, we're about halfway through that. And what else? Clone Wars reviews. If anyone's interested in that, we do those monthly. I do those with my brother, and
I might start.
Which working skills?
Oh, and follow me on Twitter because I've been reading through a bunch of Virgin Doctor Who books, and they've been
nearly
brilliant.
Done too. You're getting close to the end.
I am.
I just love the irony of Doctor Who books being published by a company called Virgin.
Fuck off. I only have 11 more new adventures and 8 more missing adventures at the time of recording this. So yeah, well, I mean, once I'm done with the one I'm currently reading, I'll have 8 more missing adventures. So yeah, that's exciting.
All right, Jacob, you got anything?
My marathon's still going on. I'm still probably in the middle of season 20. When this comes out, I'll probably either be finishing up the Black Guardian trilogy, maybe, or possibly starting on the older Nissa stuff. My blog, I've been doing EDA and PDA reviews, though those are going to be going on hiatus soon. Just a short hiatus so I can do re-review some VNAs and do some other things. Review some other Doctor Who books. I'm also on my blog going to be reviewing the first Mistborn trilogy and then the 3 books that are out for Mistborn Era 2 if you're a fantasy fan. And probably after that, some other fun fantasy stuff, because I am a fantasy nerd as well as a Doctor Who nerd.
Connor, you back?
Oh, Connor's back. Wait, before that happens, one last thing for me to plug. Follow the Doctor Who novel adaptations on Instagram. I just announced the upcoming adaptations for next year, so check out all 4 of those. It should be a really exciting year next year.
One of them stars me as the Doctor.
Hell yeah. Was that Stephen Moffat doing his Tom Baker impression?
It was me phasing into it. It wasn't particularly good.
It's Tom Baker.
Oh, so clever.
Connor, you back? Nope. So right. I guess I'll do Connor's plugs for him. Go subscribe to Genesis of Androzani. Go subscribe to Genesis of Androzani on YouTube. He does some really good stuff. He's also a New Zealander, so yeah, there you go.
He's also in. Wait, isn't it? Connor's going to be in one of our stories. Was Connor in Warhead?
Connor's in Warhead. Yeah, he's playing a character in that.
So
he's also playing a character in. He's also playing a character in Witchmark, and he'll be double rolling in Scales of Injustice. So that's exciting.
What a fucking champion! Anyway,
he's gonna be so great in Scales. I'm excited for one of his roles in that.
So that's all for now, guys. I will see you in my.
Hang on, wait! I only have one thing to say to the viewers. Bye.